fighting that we never look back. Here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up and we follow the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne.
Okay, shall we get started? All right. Um, okay, let me get my book out here. Sorry. All right, so finally getting back to reading the Dark Elf Trilogy, Homeland, after a bit of a break. And we are picking up at the beginning of part 4 of the book, which starts with a log entry, a journal entry, a poem. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. And then it gets into chapter 17. So I will go. I know I put out that I would, in the title, that I would be doing chapter 17 through 20. I don't know if I'm going to make it that far. Depends on how long my voice holds out. So let's get into it. Part 4. Gwenwivar. What eyes are these that see the pain I know in my innermost soul? What eyes are these that see the twisted strides of my kindred, led on in the wake of toys unbridled, arrow, bolt, and sword tip? Yours, aye, yours, straight run and muscled spring, soft on padded paws, sheathed claws, weapons rested for their need, stained not by frivolous blood or murderous deceit. Face to face my mirror, reflection in a still pool by light. Would that I might keep that image upon this face mine own. Would that I might keep that heart within my breast untainted. Hold tight to the proud honor of you, mighty Gwenwivar, and hold tight to my side, my dearest friend, Drizzt Do'Urden. So, a poem. Chapter 17, Homecoming. Drizzt was graduated formally on schedule and with the highest honors in his class. Perhaps Matron Malice had whispered in the right ears, smoothing over her son's indiscretions, but Drizzt suspected that more likely none of those present at the ceremony of graduation even remembered that he had left. He moved through the decorated gate of House Do'Urden, drawing stairs from the common soldiery, and over to the cavern floor below the balcony. So I am home, he remarked under his breath, for whatever that means. After what had happened in the Drider lair, Drizzt wondered if he would ever view House Do'Urden as his home again. Matron Malice was expecting him. He didn't dare arrive late. "It is good that you are home," Briza said to him when she saw him rise up over the balcony's railing. Drizzt stepped tentatively through the entryway beside his oldest sister, trying to get a firm grasp on his surroundings. Home, Briza called it, but to Drizzt, House Do'Urden seemed as unfamiliar as the academy had on his first day as a student. 10 years was not such a long time in the centuries of life a drow elf might know, but to Drizzt more than the decade of absence now separated him from this place. Maya joined them in the great corridor leading to the chapel anteroom. "Greetings, Prince Drizzt," she said, and Drizzt couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic or not. "We have heard of the honors you achieved at Mele McTheer. You're skilled at House Do'Urden proud. In spite of her words, Maya could not hide a derisive chuckle as she finished the thought. Glad I am that you did not become Drider food. Drizzt's glare stole the smile from her face. Maya and Briza exchanged concerned glances. They knew of the punishment Verna had put upon their younger brother, and the vicious scolding he had received at the hands of Matron Malice. They each cautiously rested a hand on their snake whips, not knowing how foolish their dangerous young brother might have become. It was not Matron Malice or Drizzt's sisters that now had Drizzt measuring every step before he took it. He knew where he stood with his mother, and knew what he had to do to keep her appeased. There was another member of the family, though, that evoked both confusion and anger in Drizzt. Of all his kin, only Zaknafein pretended to be what he was not. As Drizzt made his way to the chapel, he glanced anxiously down every side passage, wondering when Zack would make his appearance. "How long before you leave for patrol?" Maya asked, pulling Drizzt from his contemplations. 3 days, Drizzt replied absently, his eyes still darting from shadow to shadow. Then he was at the anteroom door with no sign of Zack. Perhaps the weapon master was within, standing beside Malice. Excuse me. "We know of your indiscretions," Briza snapped, suddenly cold, as she placed her hand on the latch to the anteroom's door. Drizzt was not surprised by her outburst. He was beginning to expect such explosions from the high priestess of the Spider Queen. "Why could you not just enjoy the pleasures of the ceremony?" Maya added. "We are fortunate that the mistresses and the matron of the academy were too involved in their own excitement to note your movements. You would have brought shame upon our entire house. You might have placed Matron Malice in Loth's disfavor," Briza was quick to add. "The best thing I could ever do for her," Drizzt thought. He quickly dismissed the notion, remembering Briza's uncanny proficiency at reading minds. "Let us hope he did not," Maya said grimly to her sister. "The tides of war hang thick in the air. I have learned my place," Drizzt assured them. He bowed low. "Forgive me, my sisters, and know that the truth of the drow world is fast opening before my young eyes. Never will I disappoint House Do'Urden in such a way again." So pleased were his sisters at the proclamation that the ambiguity of Drizzt's words slipped right past them. Then Drizzt, not wanting to push his luck too far, also slipped past them, making his way through the door, noting with relief that Zaknafein was not in attendance. "All praises to the Spider Queen," Briza yelled after him. Drizzt paused and turned to meet her gaze. He bowed low a second time. "As it should be," he muttered. Creeping behind the small group, Zack had studied Drizzt's every move, trying to measure the toll a decade at the academy had exacted on the young fighter. Gone now was the customary smile that lit Drizzt's face. Gone, too, Zack supposed, was the innocence that had kept this one apart from the rest of Menzoberranzan. Zack leaned back heavily against the wall in a side passage. He had caught only portions of the conversation at the anteroom door. Most clearly he had heard Drizzt's heartfelt accord with Briza's honoring of Loth. "What have I done?" the weapon master asked himself. He looked back around the bend in the main corridor, but the door to the anteroom had already closed. "Truly, when I look upon the drow warrior that was my most treasured, I shame for my cowardice," Zack lamented. "What has Drizzt lost that I might have saved?" He drew his smooth sword from its scabbard, his sensitive fingers running the length of the razor edge. A finer blade you would be had you tasted the blood of Drizzt Do'Urden, to deny this world, our world, another soul for its taking, to free that one from the unending torments of life. He lowered the weapon's tip to the floor. "But I am a coward," he said. "I have failed in the one act that could have brought meaning to my pitiful existence. The second boy of House Do'Urden lives, it would appear, but Drizzt Do'Urden, my two hands is long dead." Zack looked back to the emptiness where Drizzt had been standing, The weapon master's expression suddenly a grimace. Yet this pretender lives, a drow warrior. Zack's weapon clanged to the stone floor, and his head slumped down to be caught by the embrace of his open palms, the only shield Drizzt Do'Urden had ever found. Drizzt spent the next Drizzt spent the next day at rest, mostly in his room, trying to keep out of the way of the other members of his immediate family. Malice had dismissed him without a word in their initial meeting, but Drizzt did not want to confront her again. Likewise, he had little to say to Briza and Maya, fearing that sooner or later they would begin to understand the true connotations of his continuing stream of blasphemous responses. Most of all, though, Drizzt did not want to seize Aknafine, the mentor he had once thought of as his salvation against the realities around him, the one glowing light in the darkness that was Menzoberranzan. That, too, Drizzt believed, had been only a lie. On his second day home, when Narbondel, the time clock of the city, had just begun its cycle of light, the door to Drizzt's small chamber swung open, and Briza walked in. An audience with Matron Malice, she said grimly. 1,000 thoughts rushed through Drizzt's mind as he grabbed his boots and followed his oldest sister down the passageways to the house chapel. Had Malice and the others discovered his true feelings toward their evil deity? What punishments did they now have waiting for him? Unconsciously, Drizzt eyed the spider carvings on the chapel's arched entrance. You should be more familiar and more at ease with this place, Briza scolded, noting his discomfort. It is the place of our people's highest glories. Drizzt lowered his gaze and did not respond, and was careful not to even think of the many stinging retorts he felt in his heart. Oh, it said we were in an ad, and I didn't even realize it because nothing came up on my phone. Alrighty then. His confusion doubled when they entered the chapel, for Risen, Maya, and Zaknafine stood before the matron mother, as expected. Beside them, though, stood Dynan and Virna. We are all present, Briza said, taking her place at her mother's side. Kneel, Malice commanded, and the whole family fell to its knees. The matron mother paced slowly around them all, each pointedly dropping his or her eyes in reverence, or just in common sense, as the great lady walked by. Malice stopped by Drizzt. You are confused by the presence of Dynan and Virna, she said. Drizzt looked up at her. Do you not yet understand the subtle methods of our survival? I had thought that my brother and sister were to continue on at the academy, Drizzt explained. That would not be to our advantage, Malice replied. Does it not bring a house strength to have mistresses and masters seated at the academy? Drizzt dared to ask. It does, replied Malice, but it separates the power. You have heard tidings of war? I have heard hinting of trouble, said Drizzt, looking over at Virna, though nothing more tangible. Hinting? Malice huffed, angered that her son could not understand the importance. They are more than most houses ever hear before the blade falls. She spun away from Drizzt and addressed the whole group. The rumors hold truth, she declared. Who? Asked Briza. What house conspires against House Do'Urden? None behind us in rank, Dynan replied, though the question had not been asked to him, and it was not his place to speak unbidden. How do you know this? Malice asked, letting the oversight pass. Malice understood Dynan's value and knew that his contributions to this discussion would be important. We are the 9th house of the city, Dynan reasoned. But among our ranks we claim 4 high priestesses, 2 of them former mistresses of Arachnilith. He looked at Zaknafine. We have as well 2 former masters of Melee McTheer, and Drizzt was awarded the highest laurels from the School of Fighters. Our soldiers number nearly 400, all skilled and battle-tested. Only a few houses claim more. What is your point? Briza asked sharply. We are the 9th house, Dynan laughed, but few above us could defeat us, and none behind, Matron Malice finished for him. You show good judgment, elder boy. I have come to the same conclusions. One of the great houses fears House Do'Urden, Virna concluded. It needs us gone to protect its own position. That is my belief, Malice answered. An uncommon practice, for family wars usually are initiated by the lower-ranking house desiring a better position within the city hierarchy. Then we must take great care, Briza said. Drizzt listened carefully to their words, trying to make sense of it all. His eyes never left Zaknafine, though, who knelt impassively at the side. What did the callous weapon master think of all this? Drizzt wondered. Did the thought of such a war thrill him, that he might be able to kill more dark elves? Whatever his feelings, Zack gave no outward clue. He sat quietly, and by all appearances was not even listening to the conversation. It would not be Baenre, Briza said, her words sounding like a plea for confirmation. Certainly we have not yet become a threat to them. We must hope you are correct, Malice replied grimly, remembering vividly her tour of the ruling house. Likely it is one of the weaker houses above us, fearing its own unsteady position. I have not yet been able to learn any incriminating information against any in particular, so we must prepare for the worst. Thus I have called Virna and Dynan back to my side. If we learn of our enemies, Drizzt began impulsively. All eyes snapped upon him. It was bad enough for the elder boy to speak without being addressed, but for the second boy, just graduated from the academy, the act could be considered blasphemous. Wanting all perspectives, Matron Malice again let the oversight pass. Continue, she prompted. If we discover which house plots against us, Drizzt said quietly, could we not expose it? To what end? Briza snarled at him. Conspiracy without action is no crime. Then might we use reason? Drizzt pressed, continuing against the barrage of incredulous glares that came at him from every face in the room except from Zack's. If we are the stronger, then let them submit without battle. Rank House Do'Urden as it should be, and let the assumed threat to the weaker house be ended. Malice grabbed Drizzt by the front of his cloak and heaved him to his feet. I forgive your foolish thoughts, she growled, this time. She dropped him back to the floor, and the silent reprimands of his siblings descended upon him. Again, though, Zack's expression did not match the others in the room. Indeed, Zack put a hand up over his mouth to hide his amusement. Perhaps there remained a bit of the Drizzt Do'Urden he had known. He dared to hope. Perhaps the academy had not fully tainted the young fighter's spirit. Malice whirled on the rest of the family, simmering fury and lust glowing in her eyes. This is not the time to fear. This, she cried, a slender finger pointing out from in front of her face, is the time to dream. We are House Do'Urden, Dermon Ashesbernan, of power beyond the understanding of the great houses. We are the unknown entity of this war. We hold every advantage. Ninth house, she laughed. In short time, only 7 houses will remain ahead of us. What of the patrol? Briza cut in. Are we to allow the second boy to go off alone, exposed? The patrol will begin our advantage, the conniving matron explained. Drizzt will go, and included in his group will be a member of at least 4 of the houses above us. One may strike at him, Briza reasoned. No, Malice assured her. Our enemies in the coming war would not reveal themselves so clearly, not yet. The appointed assassin would have to defeat 2 Do'Urdens in such a confrontation. 2? Asked Virna. Again, Lolth has shown us her favor, explained Malice. Dynan will lead Drizzt's patrol group. The elder boy's eyes lit up at the news. Then Drizzt and I might become the assassins in this conflict, he purred. The smile disappeared from the matron mother's face. You will not strike without my consent, she warned in a tone so cold that Dynan fully understood the consequences of disobedience, as you have done in the past. Drizzt did not miss the reference to Nalfine, his murdered brother. His mother knew. Malice had done nothing to punish her murderous son. Now Drizzt's hand went up to his face, to hide an expression of horror that only could have brought him trouble in this setting. You are there to learn, Matron Malice said to Dynan. to protect your brother, as Drizzt is there to protect you. Do not destroy our advantage for the gain of a single kill. An evil smile found its way back onto her bone-hued face. But if you learn of our enemy, she said. If the proper opportunity presents itself, Briza finished, guessing her mother's wicked thoughts and throwing an equally vile smile the matron's way. Malice looked upon her eldest daughter with approval. Briza would prove a fine successor for the house. Dinan's smile became wide and lascivious. Nothing pleased the elder boy of House Do'Urden more than the opportunity for an assassination. Go then, my family, Malice said. Remember that unfriendly eyes are upon us, watching our every move, waiting for the time to strike. Zack was the first out of the chapel, as always, this time with an added spring in his step. It wasn't the prospect of fighting another war that guided his moves, though the thought of killing more clerics of the Spider Queen certainly pleased him. Rather, Drizzt's display of naivety, his continued misconceptions of the common wheel of drow existence, brought Zack hope. Drizzt watched him go, thinking Zack's strides reflected his desire to kill. Drizzt didn't know whether to follow and confront the weapon master here and now, or to let it pass, to shrug it away as readily as he had dismissed most of the cruel world around him. The decision was made for him when Matron Malice stepped in front of him and kept him in the chapel. To you I say this, she began, when they were alone. You have heard the mission I placed upon your shoulders. I will not tolerate failure. Drizzt shrank back from the power of her voice. Protect your brother, came the grim warning, or I shall give you to Loth for judgment. Drizzt understood the implications, but the matron took the pleasure to spell them out anyway. You would not enjoy your life as a drider. A lightning blast cut across the still black... Oh. That was a quick change of pace. A lightning blast cut across the still black waters of the underground lake, searing the heads of the approaching water trolls. Sounds of battle echoed through the cavern. Drizzt had one monsters... What? Scrags, they were called, cornered on a small peninsula, blocking the wretched thing's path back to the water. Normally, a single drow faced off evenly against a water troll would not have the advantage, but as the others of his patrol group had come to see in the past few weeks, Drizzt was no ordinary young drow. The scrag came on, oblivious to its peril. A single blinding movement from Drizzt lopped off the creature's reaching arms. Drizzt moved in quickly for the kill, knowing too well the regenerative powers of trolls. Then another scrag slipped out of the water at his back. Drizzt had expected this, but he gave no outward indication that he saw the second scrag coming. He kept his concentration ahead of him, driving deep slashes into the maimed and all but defenseless troll's torso. Just as the monster behind him was about to latch its claws onto him, Drizzt fell to his knees and cried, "Now!" The concealed panther, crouched in the shadows at the peninsula's base, did not hesitate. One great stride brought Gwenhwyvar into position, and it sprang crashing heavily onto the unsuspecting scrag, tearing the life from the thing before it could respond to the attack. Drizzt finished off his troll and turned to admire the panther's work. He extended his hand, and the great cat nuzzled it. How well the two fighters had come to know each other, thought Drizzt. Another blast of lightning thundered in, this one close enough to steal Drizzt's sight. "Gwenhwyvar, Mesoj Hunnet," the bolt's caster cried. "By my side, or to my side." Typo there. The panther managed to brush against Drizzt's leg as it moved to obey. When his vision returned, Drizzt walked off in the other direction, not wanting to view the scolding that Gwenhwyvar always seemed to receive when he and the cat worked together. I was confused for a second there. I thought he already had the figurine. And I wondered when that happened, and it hasn't. Masoj watched Drizzt back as he went, wanting to put a third bolt right between the young Do'Urden's shoulder blades. The wizard of House Hunnet did not miss the specter of Dynan Do'Urden off to the side. Drow companions had survived, though. What? Oh, I skipped a line, a page, sorry. Off to the side, watching with more than casual glances. Learn your loyalties, Masoj snarled at Gwenhwyvar. Too often the panther left the wizard's side to join in combat with Drizzt. Masoj knew that the cat was better complemented by the moves of a fighter, but he knew too the vulnerability of a wizard involved in spellcasting. Masoj wanted Gwenhwyvar at his side, protecting him from enemies. He shot another glance at Dynan and friends alike. Oh, I see, okay. He threw the statuette to the ground at his feet. Begone, he commanded. In the distance, Drizzt had engaged another scrag and made short work of it as well. Masoj shook his head as he watched the display of swordsmanship. Every day, Drizzt grew stronger. Give the order to kill him soon, Matron Sinafe, Masoj whispered. The young wizard did not know how much longer he would be able to carry out the task. Masoj wondered whether he could win the fight even now. Drizzt shielded his eyes as he struck a torch to seal a dead troll's wounds. Only fire ensured that trolls would not recuperate even from the grave. The other battles had died away as well. Drizzt noted, and he saw the flames of torches springing up all across the bank of the lake. He wondered if all of his 12 drow companions had survived, though he also wondered if he truly cared. Others were more than ready to take their places. Drizzt knew that the only companion who really mattered, Gwenhwyvar, was safely back in his home on the astral plane. "Form a guard," came Dynan's echoing command as the slaves, goblins, and orcs moved in to search for troll treasure and to salvage whatever they might of the scrags. When the fires had consumed the scrag he'd set ablaze, Drizzt dipped his torch in the black water, then paused for a moment to let his eyes readjust to the darkness. "Another day," he said softly, "another enemy defeated." He liked the excitement of patrolling, the thrill of the edge of danger, and the knowledge that he was now putting his weapons to use against vile monsters. Even here, though, Drizzt could not escape the lethargy that had come to pervade his life. The uh, this is another weird typo. I'm going to say general resignation that marked his every step. For though his battles these days were fought against the horrors of the Underdark, monsters killed of necessity, Drizzt had not forgotten the meeting in the chapel of House Do'Urden. He knew that his scimitars soon would be put to use against the flesh of drow elves. Zaknafine looked out. Oh, okay. Zaknafine looked out over Menzoberranzan as he so often did when Drizzt's patrol group was out of the city. Zack was torn between wanting to sneak out of the house to fight at Drizzt's side and hoping that the patrol would return with the news that Drizzt had been slain. Would Zack ever find the answer to the dilemma of the youngest Do'Urden? He wondered. Zack knew that he could not leave the house. Matron Malice was keeping a very close eye on him. She sensed his anguish over Drizzt. Zack knew, and she most definitely did not approve. Zack was often her lover, but they shared little other than that. Zack thought back to the battles he and Malice had fought over Virna, another child of common concern, centuries before. Virna was a female, her fate sealed from the moment of her birth, and Zack could do nothing to halt the assault of the Spider Queen's overwhelming religion. Did Malice fear that he might have better luck influencing the actions of a male child? Apparently the matron did, but even Zack was not so certain of her fears, if her fears were justified. Even he couldn't measure his influence over Drizzt. He peered out over the city now, silently watching for the patrol groups returning, waiting as always for Drizzt's safe return, but secretly hoping that his dilemma would be ended by the claws and fangs of a lurking monster. And that is the end of chapter 17. So we're going to jump right on in. I don't see any reason to stop. We'll jump into chapter 18, The Black Room. My greetings, Faceless One, the High Priestess said, pushing past Alton into his private chambers in Sorceer. And mine to you, Mistress Virna, Alton replied, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. Virna Do'Urden, coming to see him at this time had to be more than coincidence. What act has brought me the honor of a visit from a mistress of Aractirnith? Aractanilith, sorry. No longer a mistress, said Virna. I have returned to my home. Alton paused to consider the news. He knew that Dynan Do'Urden had also resigned his position at the academy. Matron Malice has brought her family back together, Virna continued. There are stirrings of war. You have heard them, no doubt. Just rumors, Alton stuttered, now beginning to understand why Virna had come to call on him. House Do'Urden had used the Faceless One before in its plotting, in its attempt to assassinate Alton. Now the rumors of war whispered throughout Menzoberranzan, with rumors, Matron Malice was re-establishing her network of spies and assassins. You know of them? Virna asked sharply. I have heard little, Alton breathed, careful now not to anger the powerful female. Not enough to report to your house. I did not even suspect that House Do'Urden was involved until now, when you informed me. Alton could only hope that Virna had no detection spell aimed at his words. Virna relaxed, apparently appeased by the explanation. Listen more carefully to the rumors, Faceless One, she said. My brother and I have left the academy. You are to be the eyes and ears of House Do'Urden in this place. But, Alton stuttered. Virna held up a hand to stop him. We know of our failure in our last transaction, she said. She bowed low. Something a high priestess rarely did to a male. Matron Malice sends her deepest apologies that the unguent you received for the assassination of Alton de Vere did not restore the features to your face. Alton nearly choked on the words, now understanding why an unknown messenger had delivered the jar of healing salve some 30 years before. The cloaked figure was an agent of House Do'Urden, come to repay the Faceless One for his assassination of Alton. Of course, Alton had never even tried the unguent. With his luck, it would have worked and would have restored the features of Alton de Vere. This time your payment cannot fail, Virna went on, though Alton, too caught up in the irony of it all, hardly listened. House Do'Urden possesses a wizard's staff, but no wizard worthy to wield it. It belonged to Nalfine, my brother, who died in the victory over de Vere. Alton wanted to strike out at her. Even he wasn't that stupid, though. If you can discern which house plots against House Do'Urden, Virna promised, the staff will be yours. A treasure indeed for such a small act. I will do what I can, Alton replied, having no other response to the incredible offer. That is all Matron Malice asks of you, said Virna, and she left the wizard, quite certain that House Do'Urden had secured a capable agent within the academy. Dynan and Virna Do'Urden have resigned their positions, said Alton, excitedly, as the diminutive matron mother came to him later that same evening. This is already known to me, replied Sine Hunnet. She looked around disdainfully at the littered and scorched room, then took a seat at the small table. There is more, Alton said quickly, not wanting Sine to get upset about being disturbed over old news. I have had a visitor this day, Mistress Virna Do'Urden. She suspects? Matron Sine growled. No, no, Alton replied. Quite the opposite. House Do'Urden wishes to employ me as a spy, as it once employed the Faithless One to assassinate me. Sinife paused for a moment, stunned, then issued a laugh straight from her belly. Ah, the ironies of our lives, she roared. I had heard that Dynan and Virna were sent to the academy only to oversee the education of their younger brother, marked Alton. An excellent cover, Sinife replied. Virna and Dynan were sent as spies for the ambitious matron Malice. My compliments to her. Now they suspect trouble, Alton stated, sitting opposite his matron mother. They do, agreed Sinife. Masoj patrols with Drizzt, but House Do'Urden has also managed to plant Dynan in the group. Then Masoj is in danger, reasoned Alton. No, said Sinife. House Do'Urden does not know that House Hunnet perpetrates the threat against it. Else it would not have come to you for information. Matron Malice knows your identity. A look of terror crossed Alton's face. Not your true identity, Sinife laughed at him. She knows the Faithless One as Gelgru's Hunnet, and she would not have come to a Hunnet if she suspected our house. Then we have an excellent opportunity to throw House Do'Urden into chaos, Alton cried. If I implicate another house, even Bayenray perhaps, our position will be strengthened. He chuckled at the possibilities. Malice will reward me with a staff of great power, a weapon I will turn against her at the proper moment. Matron Malice, Sinife corrected sternly. Even though she and Malice were soon to be open enemies, Sinife would not permit a male to show such disrespect to a matron mother. Do you really believe that you could carry out such a deception when Mistress Virna returns? Oh, no, that was a question. And then, when Mistress Virna returns, you will not deal with a lesser priestess with such valued information, foolish Devere. You will face Matron Malice herself, a formidable foe. If she sees through your lies, do you know what she will do to your body? Alton gulped audibly. I am willing to take the risk, he said, crossing his arms resolutely on the table. What of House Hunnet when the biggest lie is revealed? Sinife asked. What advantage will we enjoy when Matron Malice knows the Faithless One's true identity? I understand, Alton answered, crestfallen, but unable to refute Sinife's logic. Then what are we to do? What am I to do? Matron Sinife was already considering their next moves. You will resign your tenure, she said at length. Return to House Hunnet within my protection. Such an act might also implicate House Hunnet to Matron Malice, Alton reasoned. It may, replied Sinife, but it is the safest route. I will go to Matron Malice in feigned anger, telling her to leave House Hunnet out of her troubles. If she wishes to make an informant of a member of my family, then she should come to me for permission, though I'll not grant it at this time. Sinife smiled at the possibilities of such an encounter. My anger, my fear alone could implicate a greater house against House Do'Urden, even a conspiracy between more than one house, she said, obviously enjoying the added benefits. Matron Malice will certainly have much to think about and much to worry about. Alton hadn't even heard Sinife's last comments. The words about granting her permission this time had brought a disturbing notion to his mind. And did she? He dared to ask, though his words were barely audible. What do you mean? Asked Sinife, not following his thoughts. Did Matron Malice come to you? Alton continued, frightened but needing an answer. 30 years ago, did Matron Sinife grant her permission for Gelru's Hunnet to become an agent, an assassin to complete House de Vere's elimination? A wide smile spread across Sinife's face, but it vanished in the blink of an eye as she threw the table across the room, grabbed Alton by the front of his robes, and pulled him roughly to within an inch of her scowling visage. Never confuse personal feelings with politics. The tiny but obviously strong matron growled, her tone carrying the unmistakable weight of an open threat. And never ask me such a question again. She threw Alton to the floor, but didn't release him from her penetrating glare. Alton had known all along that he was merely a pawn in the intrigue between House Hunnet and House Do'Urden, a necessary link for Matron Sinafe to carry out her treacherous plans. Every now and then, though, Alton's personal grudge against House Do'Urden caused him to forget his lowly place in this conflict. Looking up now at Sinafe's bared power, he realized that he had overstepped the bounds of his position. At the back end of the mushroom grove, we've switched roles again here. At the back end of the mushroom grove, the southern wall of the cavern that housed Menzoberranzan was a small, heavily guarded cave. Beyond the iron-bound doors stood a single room, used only for gatherings of the city's 8 ruling matron mothers. The smoke of 100 sweet-smelling candles permeated the air. The matron mothers liked it that way. After all, after almost half a century of studying scrolls in the candlelight of Sorceer, Alton did not mind the light, but he was indeed uncomfortable in the chamber. He sat at the back end of a spider-shaped table in a small, unadorned chair reserved for guests of the council. Between the table's 8 hairy legs were the ruling matron mothers' thrones, all jeweled and dazzling in the candlelight. The matrons filed in, pompous and wicked, casting belittling glares at the male. Sinafe, at Alton's side, put a hand on his knee and gave him a reassuring wink. She would not have dared to request a gathering of the ruling council if she was not certain of the worthiness of her news. The ruling matron mothers viewed their seats as honorary in nature and did not appreciate being brought together except in times of crisis. At the head of the spider table sat Matron Bainray, the most powerful figure in all of Menzoberranzan, an ancient and withered female with malicious eyes and a mouth unaccustomed to smiles. "We are gathered, Sinafe," Bainray said, when all 8 mothers had found their appointed chairs. "For what reason have you summoned the council?" "To discuss a punishment," Sinafe replied. "Punishment?" Matron Bainray echoed, confused. The recent years had been unusually quiet in the drow city, without an incident since the Scanduisfreth conflict. To the first matron's knowledge, no acts had been committed that might require a punishment, certainly none so blatant as to force the ruling council to action. What individual deserves this? "Not an individual," explained Matron Sinafe. She glanced around at her peers, measuring their interest. "A house," she said bluntly. "Dernon na Shersburn, House Do'Urden." Several gasps of disbelief came in reply, as Sinafe had expected. "House Do'Urden?" Matron Bainray questioned, surprised that any would implicate Matron Malice. By all of Bainray's knowledge, Malice remained in high regard with the Spider Queen, and House Do'Urden had recently placed 2 instructors in the academy. For what crime do you dare to charge House Do'Urden?" asked one of the other matrons. "Are these words of fear, Sinafe?" Matron Bainray had to ask. Several of the ruling matrons had expressed concern about House Do'Urden. It was well known that Matron Malice desired a seat on the ruling council, and by all measures of the power of her house, she seemed destined to get it. "I have appropriate cause," Sinafe insisted. "The others seem to doubt you," replied Matron Bainray. "You should explain your accusation quickly if you value your reputation." Sinafe knew that more than her reputation was at stake. In Menzoberranzan, a false accusation was a crime on par with murder. "We all remember the fall of House de Vere," Sinafe began. 7 of us now gathered sat upon the ruling council beside Matron Guinevere de Vere. "House de Vere is no more," Matron Bainray reminded her. "Because of House Do'Urden," Sinafe said bluntly. This time the gasps came out as open anger. "How dare you speak such words?" came one reply. "30 years," came another. "The issue has been forgotten." Matron Bainray quieted them all before the clamor rose into violent action, a not uncommon occurrence in the council chamber. Sine she said, through the dry sneer on her lips, one cannot make such an accusation. One cannot discuss such beliefs openly so long after the event. You know our ways. If House Do'Urden did indeed commit this act, as you insist, it deserves our compliments, not our punishment, for it carried it through to perfection. House de Vere is no more, I say. It does not exist. Alton shifted uneasily, caught somewhere between rage and despair. Sine was far from dismayed, though. This was going exactly as she had envisioned and hoped. "Oh, but it does," she responded, rising to her feet. She pulled the hood from Alton's head. "In this person." "Gelroos?" asked Matron Banray, not understanding. "Not Gelroos," Sine replied. "Gelroos Hunnet died the night House de Vere died. This male, Alton de Vere, assumed Gelroos's identity and position, hiding from further attacks by House Do'Urden." Banray whispered some instructions to the matron at her right side, then waited as she went through the semantics of a spell. Banray motioned for Sine to return to her seat, then faced Alton. "Speak your name," Banray commanded. "I am Alton de Vere," Alton said, gaining strength from the identity he had waited so very long to proclaim. "Son of Matron Guinevere, and a student of Sorcier on the night House Do'Urden attacked." Banray looked at the matron at her side. "He speaks the truth, matron," the matron assured her. Whispers sprang up all around the spider table of amusement more than anything else. "That is why I summoned the ruling council," Sine quickly explained. "Very well, Sine," said Matron Banray. "My compliments to you, Alton de Vere, on your resourcefulness and ability to survive. For a male, you have shown great courage and wisdom. Surely you both know that the council cannot act an exact punishment upon a house for a deed committed so long ago. Why would we so desire?" Oh, wait. Did I read that right? "Why would we so desire? Matron Malice Do'Urden sits in the favor of the Spider Queen. Her house shows great promise. You must reveal to us greater need if you wish any punishment against House Do'Urden." "I do not wish such a thing," Sine quickly replied. "This matter, 30 years removed, is no longer in the realm of the ruling council. House Do'Urden does indeed show promise. My peers, with 4 high priestesses and a host of other weapons, not the least of which being their second boy Drizzt, first graduate of his class." She she had purposely mentioned Drizzt, knowing that the name would strike wound in Matron Banray. Banray's own prized son, Berginian, had spent the last 9 years ranked behind the wonderful young Do'Urden. "Then why have you bothered us?" Matron Banray demanded, an unmistakable edge in her voice. "To ask you to close your eyes," Sine purred. "Alton is a Hunnet now, under my protection. He demands vengeance for the act committed against his family, and as a surviving member of the attacked family, he has the right of accusation." "House Hunnet will stand beside him?" Matron Banray asked, turning curious and amused. Whoops. Keeps jumping. "Indeed," replied Sine. "Thus is House Hunnet bound." "Vengeance?" another matron quipped, also now more amused than angered. "Or fear? It would seem to my ears that the matron of House Hunnet uses this pitiful de Vere creature for her own gain. House Do'Urden aspires to higher ranking, and Matron Malice desires to sit upon the ruling council, a threat to House Hunnet, perhaps. Be it vengeance or prudence, my claim, Alton de Vere's claim, must be deemed as legitimate," replied Sine, "to our mutual gain." She smiled wickedly and looked straight to the first matron. "To the gains of our sons, perhaps, in their quest for recognition." "Indeed," replied Matron Banray, in a chuckle that sounded more like a cough. "A war between Hunnet and Do'Urden might be to everyone's gain, but not," Banray suspected, as Sine believed. Malice was a powerful matron, and her family truly deserved a ranking higher than 9th. If the fight did come, Malice probably would get her seat on the council, replacing Sinefé. Matron Bayenray looked around at the other matrons and guessed from their hopeful expressions that they shared her thoughts. Let Hunnet and Do'Urden fight it out. Whatever the outcome, the threat of Matron Malice would be ended. Perhaps, Bayenray hoped, a certain young Do'Urden male would fall in battle, propelling her own son into the position he deserved. Then the first matron spoke the words Sinefé had come to hear, the silent permission of the Menzoberranzan's ruling council. This matter is settled, my sisters, Matron Bayenray declared, to the accepting nods of all at the table. It is good that we never met this day. And that is the end of chapter 18. And I think that is, well, let me see how long 19 is. It's longer than I'm going to be able to get through tonight. I'll tell you that. If it was a short chapter, my voice would hold out, but it's not up to it. Okay, so we read 17 and 18 tonight. That'll have to do. Oh, what the hell is going on here? Where are we at here? Okay, so I was just going to check and see who is around if I want to. I see Vespers on. Nah, not tonight. I think I'll just call it. I will see you all Monday for the next Star Wars reading. Have a good night.
Feeling shattered skies, watching teary blue eyes, wonder where I might find some peace of mind. Not lights like I've had, but more sophisticated into the